webcast and made available on the internet. As such, all those present should refrain from making any defamatory statements. Can I ask that all councillors during the duration of the meeting limit discussions to only the business paper on the agenda and what is permissible under the adopted code of meeting practice. Before we get into the formal meeting, I just wanted to say welcome everybody. I'd like to take a moment to congratulate our elected body. Being a councillor is an important role. You're the voice of our community. Welcome to the council team, both previously elected and newly elected. Your differing experience and perspectives will be invaluable in the term ahead. Congratulations to all on being elected. Now, can we please stand for the opening prayer? Thank you. Lord, we pray for the blessings on this council meeting. Grant that we discuss all matters with understanding and have wisdom in our decisions, that they will be done and through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Acknowledgement of country. Council acknowledges that today we meet on the traditional lands of the Kamilaroi, Gamilaroi, Gomeroi people and recognise their continuing connection to this land and pay respects to elders past and present, and I extend that respect to any Aboriginal people present here today. Recognition of servicemen and women. Council acknowledges that sacrifice has been made by Australian servicemen and women, in particular those who gave their lives in the defence of our freedom we enjoy. Please sit. We start with disclosures of interest. So councillors are reminded of their obligation to declare interests in any matters listed before them. In considering your interests, you are reminded to include pecuniary, significant non-pecuniary and non-significant non-pecuniary conflicts of interest as well as any other interests you perceive or may be perceived of you. Councillors may declare an interest at the commencement of the meeting or alternatively at any time during the meeting should any issue progress or arise that would warrant a declaration. Councillors must state their reasons for declaring any type of interest. Now we'll move on to the first item of business, which is item 15.1, which is the oath or affirmation of office by councillors. So as can be read in the report, elected body is to take an oath or an affirmation. It's up to you to decide, and we need to record you saying it. So we'll go around in a circle and have each of you say that oath or affirmation. Once we've done that, we'll come to the recommendation and go from there. And we also, if we can have each of your forms you've filled out for the oath or affirmation, and that'll be minuted or tabled with the minutes. So we'll start with Councillor Tiemans.
Thank you. I, Ethan William Patrick Town, swear that I will undertake the duties of the Office of Councillor in the best interest of the people of Narrabri Shire and the Narrabri Shire Council, and that I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993 and other acts to the best of my ability and judgment. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam General Manager. I, Josh Roberts Garnsey, solemnly and sincerely declare and affirm that I will undertake the duties of the Office of Councillor in the best interest of the people of Narrabri Shire and the Narrabri Shire Council, and that I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993 or any other act to the best of my ability and judgment. Thank you.
Thank you. I, Brett Nolan, swear that I will undertake the duties of the Office of Councillor in the best interest of the people of Narrabri and the Narrabri Shire Council, and that I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993 and in any other act to the best of my ability and judgment.
Affirmation. I, Gregory Bruce Lamont, solemnly and sincerely declare and affirm that I will undertake the duties of the Office of Councillor in the best interest of the people of Narrabri Shire and the Narrabri Shire Council, and that I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993 or any other act to the best of my ability and judgment. Thank you.
Affirmation. I, Jocelyn Jansen, solemnly and sincerely declare and affirm that I will undertake the duties of the Office of Councillor in the best interests of the people of the Narrabri Shire and the Narrabri Shire Council, and that I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act of 1993 or any other act to the very best of my ability and judgment.
I, Naveen Eratnej, swear that I will undertake the duties of the Office of the Councillor in the best interest of the people of Narrabri Shire and the Narrabri Shire Council, and that I will faithfully and impartially carry out functions, powers and authorities and discretion vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993 or any other act to best of my ability and judgment. Thanks.
I take the oath. Brett Dickinson, swear that I will undertake the duties of the Office of Council in the best interests of the people of Narrabri Shire and the Narrabri Shire Council, and that I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993 or any other act to the best of my ability and judgment.
I, Amanda Gay Brown, swear that I will undertake the duties of the Office of Councillor in the best interests of the people of the Narrabri Shire and the Narrabri Shire Council, and that I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993 or any other act to the best of my ability and judgment.
Thank you all. So the recommendation we have is that the councillors note the requirement to take the oath of office or make an affirmation of office in accordance with the Local Government Act 1993, New South Wales. Number 2, the oath of office or affirmation of office be individually taken by each councillor before the General Manager. Can I get a mover and a seconder on that? Mover? Brett? Daryl? Thank you. All in favour? Perfect. Welcome, councillors. Excellent. Next item of business is the election of the office of the Mayor. So I think I'll hand to Jason. Oh, wait a minute. So we need nomination forms. If you have a nomination form, if you can bring them up. Is there any more nomination forms? Nope. So I have one nomination form for the office of the Mayor, and that is Councillor Daryl Tiemans. According to our Code of Meeting Practice in Appendix E, I did my homework, that if only one nomination is received, that councillor will be elected unopposed as Mayor for the ensuing 2 years. So what we will need to do is reword this recommendation. So it will say that the council elect Councillor Daryl Tiemans. Daryl Tiemans as the Mayor for the period of 9th of October 2024 until September 2026. We will not need the by way of open voting because we do not need to vote. Yep, so I'll just, will that update? There we go. I'll just repeat the recommendation so that Council-elect Councillor Daryl Tiemans as Mayor for the period of 9th of October 2024 until September 2026 on the basis that he was the only candidate nominated. Can I get a mover and a seconder on that? Councillor Brown, seconder? Councillor Nolan. Thank you. All in favour? Yep. Unopposed. Perfect. I now ask the Mayor.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, everyone. By the way, thank you very much, and for the members of the general public, it is an enormous honour to represent this council and to represent this great part of this wonderful state. So, thank you very much, and thank you for the faith. I really look forward as a council to working with each and every one of you. I think we have an opportunity here to really set a very strong agenda for the future of Narrabri Shire and to represent all of our great diverse communities and all our little villages and the little townships and our overall community. I really think as a group of councillors we can do great things. And we can discover our voice and we can really, really advocate very strongly on behalf of our community. It's a very important community. It's an important community that needs the role of a strong council more than ever, as we head into sort of some interesting economic times. I think it's more than ever all of us have to work together to really do good for our community. So thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it. We move on to item 15.3, which is actually establishing the office of Deputy Mayor. We have obviously a choice as councillors to establish the office of Deputy Mayor. The recommendation here is that we do establish the office of Deputy Mayor, that the council sets the term of the office of Deputy Mayor. It's typically, it can be 12 months or it can be 24 months. That council elects a Deputy Mayor. We do, firstly, the matter of establishing the office of Deputy Mayor, should we actually vote on these separately, or how would we like to proceed on this? No. Don't need to vote. Okay, so we have received one nomination. The nomination here is for Councillor Brett Dickinson, who's been nominated by Councillor Brown and Councillor Tiemans, myself. Now, the assumption is that we're creating the office of the Deputy Mayor. If anyone's got any objections for or against that, more than happy to chat about that now, and also set the term of the office of Deputy Mayor. I think the general consensus would be that 12 months is appropriate at this stage, but it's really I'm happy to open it up to the floor to see whether there's any for or against this particular item. I actually might get a mover for this particular motion. The motion is that we create the office of Deputy Mayor, that we set a term of 12 months and that we elect Councillor Brett Dickinson. Can I have a mover on this? Councillor Nolan, Councillor Jansen. I'm going to get used to saying the different council names now. Would you like to speak to your motion? It's your motion now, Councillor Nolan. that we create the office, that we set the term at 12 months, and then we elect Councillor Dickinson.
We create the office and we set the term of 12 months for Councillor Brett Dickinson for Deputy Mayor.
Yep. All right. Any sort of objections for or against that particular proposal? Okay, I'll actually put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much, Council. We now move on to delegations. Oh, sorry. Sorry. The train keeps going. I'm very sorry, Mr. Deputy Mayor. No doubt. I'm very sorry. The next one is delegations of authority to the Mayor. I think it would be a good idea through the General Manager to the Manager just to kind of go through what this actually means for the Council and what it means for the community. And likewise, we'll also go through delegations of authority to the General Manager, which is the next item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the GM. In essence, the Council's endowed with certain functions, quite a lot of functions, whether it's under this Act or other acts, and the Council has authority under the Local Government Act to delegate some of those functions to individuals. One of those individuals is typically the Mayor. So what this basically does, or what the recommendation is that the Mayor gets delegated certain functions, and I'll just skip through the actual delegation. It's not many. In essence, the proposed delegation is that the Mayor be delegated to represent the Council with the General Manager in deputations, meetings and other forums where it's appropriate to represent Council's position, and to provide civic receptions as appropriate. So those are the only two things that are specifically being recommended to delegate to the Mayor. The rest of the Mayor's function is actually enshrined in Section 226 of the Local Government Act. Yeah, so that's what this report's about.
So there's a whole lot of things that can't be changed, but then there's two items. What were they again? Sorry, through the General Manager to the Manager? Ah, yes. To represent the Council, yes. Do I have a mover on this motion? Councillor Dickinson, Councillor Jansen, seconding that. Would you like to speak to your motion at all? Councillor Jansen, would you like to speak to that? Any discussion for or against this motion? Okay, great. Well, I'll put it to the floor. All those in favour? All those against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you very much, everyone. Now, this the next item, moving along, is item 15.5. This is delegations of authority to the General Manager. Now, as councillors, we are, as Jason said, the Manager said, we can give a certain amount of authority or delegations to the General Manager. So the recommendation here is that Council delegates to the Interim General Manager of Narrabri Shire Council the functions in accordance with the instrument of delegation to the General Manager attached to this report. So you can see the delegations that are here. There's a whole lot of delegations. Through the General Manager to the Manager, could you just quickly just run us through those delegations? They are very important, and there are some specific numerical and financial implications as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the General Manager, I won't go through all the individual delegations themselves piecemeal because I'll be here all day. But if anybody has any specific questions around any individual ones, just raise them. In essence, like I said before, the Council has the ability to delegate some of its functions to individuals, and in this case, it's the General Manager. There are some functions that can't be delegated, and those are on pages 29 and 30 of the business paper. I suppose the imperative when setting the general manager's delegations is to strike that balance between the responsibility and accountability you're putting on the general manager, and matching or finding a balance between that and the level of authority that you're going to grant them. Because if you could end up in a situation where you could set the general manager up effectively to fail because you give them all the responsibility and no authority to actually carry it out. Or the other side of the coin, if it's limitless, it can create a situation where a general manager has too much authority and not enough responsibility. So it's important to get that balance. And the extent of authority given also depends on the level of trust between the elected body and the general manager as well. So this particular set of delegations is based upon what we've done in the past and where we believe the balance lies. There are limitations on it, namely limitations arising from the provisions of the Act and other legislation, as well as resolutions of council that limit the general manager's delegation. So it's one of those cases where the council can resolve in a way that modifies the room the general manager has to operate within those delegations. And there's also a financial limit as well. So the general manager is proposed not to accept tenders for any more than $1.5 million, which that sounds like a lot of money, but when we're talking about, you know, some of our roads contracts and bigger contracts, yeah, there's quite a few that end up over that mark. So that's what we're proposing for the general manager's delegations, but it's subject to what the elected body is comfortable with and what they trust the general manager with.
Councillor Lamont.
Yeah, just a question through you, Mr. Mayor, to the interim general manager. I noticed that the delegation of authority here to accept tenders and expend money up to 1.5 million, and based on what the manager governance was just saying about the level of experience and that, how do you feel about accepting that responsibility is a question. And if you're comfortable with that, well, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to move the delegation.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I do feel quite comfortable in terms of being able to sign off on those contracts that are up to a value of 1.5 million. I believe that the process we have in place, which I know you're aware of, but for our new councillors, we will go over this in future inductions. So anything over 250,000 needs to be tendered out. So it's an open tender, goes out to the public, and it's quite a thorough process, which I'm quite comfortable with, knowing that process and knowing the governance around that process. So, and then how we determine which person or company is a successful tenderer, I am quite comfortable with that process too, and quite happy around the governance of that process. We have an independent tender panel within council, which assesses the whole process and lands on the successful tenderer, which ends up being the contract is drawn up with. And we also produce a report quarterly to council, which details every contract that was signed between that $250 and $1.5 million. So you will see those contracts. So I am quite happy with that, but I will leave it up to the council body. But I would just note, just be aware, if all contracts do have to go to council, there may be, you know, a 2 or 3 week delay in processing those contracts, just because we have to line it up with different council meetings. That's the only thing I would note, but I am quite comfortable with that, knowing we've got that governance around the process.
Do we have any other questions before we move into formally moving it as a motion? Have we got any other questions or just items you'd like to clarify around this at all? Does everyone sort of fairly clear about what we're doing today? Everyone understand? Okay, so do we have a mover on this motion? Councillor Lamont, seconder. Councillor Dickinson, thank you very much. Councillor Lamont, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, I will. And my question achieved the purpose that I was seeking for the interim general manager to explain to the new councillors how the process works. Because often when you see a figure like this, You know, you couldn't run your P&C with a $1.5 million delegation, could you? So it's a whole new ball game here, and I appreciate your answer. So I'm moving that motion, Mr Mayor, on the basis of that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lamont. Any other councillors would like to make a comment for or against? So the recommendation here is that Council delegate to the interim GM of Narrabri Shire Council the functions in accordance with the instrument delegation to the GM attached to this report. I'll put it to the floor. All those in favour? All those against? It's carried unanimously. Thanks everyone for that. We're now moving on to item 15.6. This is a very short council meeting, by the way. This is just getting the mandatories done, and we're obviously going to be having another council meeting in the next few weeks, which will be good. Item 15.6, ordinary council meeting schedule until October 2025. We will decide again on our new schedule. So the recommendation is that council sets the dates and times for its ordinary council meetings from October 2024 to September 2025. Just to give everyone a bit of context, we have had a meeting this morning where we went through an induction and we had a discussion. Pretty much every one of your councillors either runs a business or is working full time and very, very busy. So what we've decided to do is largely have council meetings of an evening, 5 to 5:30. Large, except for the first one, but starting on the 28th of October, on Monday the 28th of October, 5 to 5:30, and then from Wednesday the 20th of November to just continue on Wednesdays of an evening, so 5 to 5:30. So that'll be good. Of course, those meetings are open to every member of the general public. They'll also be streamed live on YouTube as well, so people are welcome to participate in their democracy for their local council. So, do I have a mover? Do I have a mover on this motion, please? Councillor Jansen. Do I have a seconder for this motion? I think it might have been Councillor Roberts Garnsey. So, would you like to speak to your motion, Councillor Jansen? No, thanks. Any other comments for or against this motion? I'll put it to the floor. All those in favour? All those against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you very much, Council. Yes, this next item is item 15.7, which is casual vacancies in the Office of Councillors. The recommendation here is that Council determines a methodology for filling a casual vacancy that occurs within 18 months after the local government elections that we've just had, and that we basically declare a methodology of filling those vacant counts, the vacancy. I will just, through the General Manager, get the Manager of Governance just to quickly give us a top line on this, of our options.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through the Chair and the General Manager. If there's a casual vacancy, there's really two options. The standard, if Council makes no resolution or does nothing, is that there's a by-election. So if one of the elected body leaves office for whatever reason, the standard routine way of filling that vacancy is with a by-election. Councils have the option under Section 291A to go with another option if there's a vacancy in the first 18 months of the term. So from now until about April 26. If Council resolves, if there's a casual vacancy in that first 18 months, the vacancy can be filled by a count back. So that's basically the candidate who came 10th in the election just gone. And in that case, I think it was Peter Guest was the candidate that was 10th in the list. They got the 10th most votes when preferences were counted. So again, it's a matter for the elected body what you do, but if you want to go with the option of a count back, you need to resolve it at this meeting. Otherwise, it reverts to the standard by-election. And that's only if there's a vacancy in that first 18 months. After 18 months, it's a by-election. There's no other option. Yeah, there's also, obviously, if you fill by a count back in that time, if there's a vacancy and you fill by a count back in that time, it's a lot cheaper than if you go to a by-election, because elections aren't the cheapest things in the world. So that's also a consideration.
Okay, thank you very much. So, councillors, you can see the two options there. Does anyone want to ask any questions before we move into formal meeting procedure on this one? Any questions you'd like to ask of the General Manager or the Manager at this stage? Does it make sense what the options are? What would the cost be roughly? Do you know? The referendum? Quite a lot of money. We're talking.
Yeah,
hundreds
you're
of
talking
thousands of
six figures.
Yeah. It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I think the recommendation here would be that we do use countback. I think that would be the recommendation. I think that would be, I mean, that would obviously be the smart thing to do. Council's got to maintain a tight rein on all expenditure of this council. Does someone want to move that as a motion? Councillor Dickinson. Do I have a seconder on that motion? Councillor Towns. Would you like to speak to the motion at all? Or? No worries. Would anyone else like to speak for or against this particular motion? So the motion here is that we use, if, for instance, one of the council position becomes vacant, what would happen is that we use the count back method, and that a councillor automatically is appointed to step into that vacancy. Does that make sense to everyone? Councillor?
So if a councillor, for example, at number 10 decided they didn't want to do it, would we go to the 11th person, so to speak, like the next person down? I mean, it's just wanted to...
Excellent question.
We're just checking, but we're fairly sure that would be the case. We cannot tell you right now who that person is, but that's how we understand it.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Mr Mayor, could I...
Yes, Councillor Lamont.
Reading amongst the information, the returning officer, if you go back to a count back, they have to appoint a returning officer and they have to verify that that person is willing and then go all through the process. Yep. So it was me that didn't wanted to be, of course, a casual vacancy. They've got to then test the system to make sure that Mr Guess was the right person.
They've got to run the numbers
They've got to
again.
go all the way through,
Yep.
and they've got to contact all candidates to see whether they're interested, because then they're going to have gaps, and it's quite a complex process, as I understand the reading for the Electoral Commission.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Lamont. So we don't need any further discussion about this, do we? So we'll leave it up to the Electoral Commission as to how they run that, but it would be done using their usual count-back methodology. So any other comments for or against this particular motion? I'll put it to the floor. Have we got that?
It's the next person.
Yeah, so it'll be the next person down the line is what they've just found out there. So what we're voting on here is that we use the count-back method with the New South Wales Electoral Commission running their numbers. If a casual vacancy occurs within 18 months after the last ordinary council election of councillors. Yep. It is by count back, yep. Okay, I'll put it to the floor, everyone. All those in favour? All those against? It's carried unanimously. Thanks, everyone. I think we're almost right down to the last little bit of mandatories that we have to make a decision on today. The last one is item 15.8, which is councillor expenses and facilities policy, and this is to put it on exhibition for a period of 28 days. The recommendation here is that council endorses the payment of expenses and provision of facilities to councillor policy. I know it's a very long-winded name for a policy, but it's to have that placed on public exhibition for a period of 28 days and call for public submissions on the draft document during this time. What happens, councillors, is it goes on exhibition for 28 days and we call on the general public to make comment if they wish to. And it'll go to a future council meeting, probably not the next one, but certainly one in the very near future. Do I have a mover for that motion, please?
Jason can explain anything.
Councillor Jansen and Councillor Dickinson seconding, thanks. We might just, through the General Manager, we might just get the Manager just to quickly give us a bit of a top line of what this particular policy means for councillors.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through the General Manager. So this policy governs what council will pay to councillors and what facilities get provided to councillors for things beyond their council, beyond your councillor fee. So naturally, there's often things that councillors have to do, go to conferences, events, travel, all sorts of things like that incur costs to councillors, and there's an intent that councillors don't, well, there's a hope that councillors wouldn't be financially burdened any more than is necessary by fulfilling their duties as councillors, preferably not at all. So what this policy does is it tries to strike that, tries to achieve that goal by providing for a policy basis for councillors to be able to be reimbursed for expenses or to have expenses covered for when they travel or when they go to things or for training and things like that.
Thank you very much. I'm sure you've all had time to read that policy. It seems fairly self-explanatory. Councillor Jansen, would you like to speak to your motion at all, or that's quite fine. Any other councillors for or against this motion? It's very straightforward. I'll put it to the floor. All those in favour? All those against? It's carried. That being the case, I think that is the end of this particular meeting. Thank you very much, councillors. I know it's been a long day for everyone, but we do have an afternoon tea, and we certainly thank all the members of the public for coming along and witnessing today. So thank you very much, everyone. At 2:07, the council meeting has ended. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks.